Right now, thousands of UK homeowners are lying awake at night wondering if they're about to be hit with a tax bill that could force them out of homes they've owned for decades. The mansion tax rumours are swirling harder than ever. And Rightmove, the country's biggest property portal, just issued a stark warning to the government about what could happen next. Whether you're trying to buy your first home, thinking about downsizing, or just wondering if your property is suddenly going to cost you thousands more each year, this affects you. And the truth? It's more complicated and more concerning than most people realise. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to Property Reporter for the latest property news and analysis that actually matters to your wallet. So what exactly are we talking about when people say mansion tax? Because here's the thing. There isn't just one proposal floating around Westminster right now. There are 3 separate ideas being discussed, and each one would reshape the UK housing market in a different way. The first is scrapping capital gains tax exemption on main homes. Right now, when you sell your primary residence, you don't pay a penny in capital gains on whatever profit you've made over the years. That could change, particularly for higher value properties. And if you're wondering which homes would get hit hardest, look south. London and the South East would bear the brunt of this one. The second proposal is replacing stamp duty with an annual property tax, but only for the most expensive homes. The rumour mill says we're talking about properties valued over £500,000. Treasury officials have denied this specific plan, but the idea keeps resurfacing in policy discussions. Then there's the third option, and this one's particularly interesting. Some think tanks want to scrap council tax entirely. Sounds brilliant, right? Except they want to replace it with an annual tax calculated as a percentage of your property's value, with a minimum floor of £800 and a cap at the higher end. None of this is official policy yet, but the speculation alone is already causing real damage to market confidence. The anxiety is hitting certain groups particularly hard, and older homeowners are feeling it the most. Many of them bought properties 30 or 40 years ago when prices were a fraction of what they are today. Their homes have skyrocketed in value, but their incomes haven't kept pace. A lot of these people are living on fixed pensions, watching their properties appreciate into the millions while struggling with everyday expenses. Suddenly, they're facing a scenario where they might not be able to afford to stay in homes they've lived in for decades. But here's the cruel twist. Even if they decide to sell and downsize, they'd get hammered with new taxes on the way out, potentially leaving them without enough money to buy something smaller in a decent area. And it's not just retirees who are nervous. Anyone thinking about moving up or down the property ladder is asking the same question right now. Should I wait? Should I sell before the rules change? That kind of hesitation doesn't just affect individual decisions. It sends shockwaves through the entire housing market. When people start hitting pause on major life decisions because of political uncertainty, the whole system starts to seize up. Rightmove didn't just join this debate with opinions, they came armed with data, and the numbers tell a story that should make policymakers very nervous. Nationally, about 30% of properties in England are worth £500,000 or more. If an annual property tax replaced stamp duty at that threshold, nearly a third of the housing stock would be directly impacted. But here's where it gets really uneven. Geography matters massively in English property, and a single national threshold would create wildly different outcomes depending on where you live. In London, the average property price sits around £600,000, and a staggering 59% of properties currently for sale are above that £500,000 mark. Compare that to the North East, where only 8% of properties for sale hit that threshold. Any policy with a fixed price point is going to feel completely different depending on your postcode. The data on sales agreed this year makes the disparity even clearer. Across England, 19% of agreed sales have been above £500,000. In London, that figure jumps to 52%, more than half of all transactions. In the North East, it's just 4%. When you look at the luxury end of the market, properties over £1.5 million represent just 1% of the national housing stock. Sounds small, right? But in London, it's 1 in every 10 properties for sale, and 5% of all agreed sales fall into that bracket. In the North East, the figure is basically negligible at 0.1%. What this data screams is that any blanket policy is going to hit different regions in completely different ways, and London is going to bear a disproportionate burden compared to the rest of the country. So who actually benefits from these proposals, and who gets left behind? Rightmove argues that shifting property taxes from buyers to sellers could genuinely help first-time buyers. These buyers already face the triple challenge of saving massive deposits, meeting strict mortgage affordability criteria, and then getting hit with stamp duty on top. Removing that final hurdle could make home ownership accessible to thousands more people. But there's a massive catch that nobody seems to be talking about enough. If sellers suddenly have to pay a new tax, what's stopping them from simply raising their asking prices to compensate? If that happens, the benefit to first-time buyers evaporates completely, and we're right back where we started. For people in the middle of the market, around that £500,000 threshold, these proposals could create absolute chaos. Imagine you bought your home 5 years ago and paid stamp duty like everyone else. Now you want to sell and move somewhere else, but suddenly there's a new tax on sellers. You'd be paying twice, once when you bought and once when you sell. That's not going to make you happy, and it's certainly not going to encourage you to move. And if these changes come in while you're mid-transaction, you could find yourself caught between two systems, potentially liable for taxes under both. That uncertainty alone is enough to make people pull out of sales and just stay put. At the luxury end, properties over £1.5 million might only represent 1% of the national market. But in London and the South East, they're a crucial part of the housing economy. If owners of these properties feel they're being unfairly targeted, they'll simply choose not to move. That might sound like a minor issue, but these properties often sit at the top of long chains. When the top of the chain freezes, everyone below it gets stuck too. Mobility grinds to a halt, and, ironically, downsizing becomes even less attractive than it already is, despite all the taxes already in place to discourage staying in large family homes. Here's the twist that should worry the Treasury. If transaction volumes fall because people are too scared or too financially constrained to move, the government might actually collect less tax revenue than before. It's the law of unintended consequences playing out in real time, and it's happened before with previous stamp duty changes. But what about renters? Where do they fit into all this? If stamp duty gets shifted from buyers to sellers, it could theoretically make it easier for renters to take that first step onto the property ladder. But during the transition period, while these changes are being debated and potentially implemented, they're stuck renting. And the rental market right now is brutal. Rents are 44% higher than they were before the pandemic. Let that sink in. Nearly half again as expensive in just a few years. On top of that, there's 26% less rental stock available compared to pre-pandemic levels. Fewer properties, higher prices, and more competition for every available rental. Landlords are already leaving the market in significant numbers, squeezed by tax changes, increased regulations, and lower yields. These mansion tax rumours aren't just about owner-occupiers. Buy-to-let properties would be caught up in this too. If more landlords decide the game isn't worth playing anymore and sell up, where does that leave renters? With even fewer options and even higher rents. The people who are furthest from home ownership could end up being the ones who suffer most from policies designed to target the wealthy. Now here's the reality check that everyone needs to hear. None of this is guaranteed to happen. Not one of these proposals is set in stone. Council tax reform has been talked about for years, and any major overhaul would likely take years more to implement. We're probably looking at the next Parliament at the earliest, and by then, who knows who'll be in power or what their priorities will be. The idea of shifting stamp duty from buyers to sellers is just that, an idea being floated by a think tank. It's not government policy, and there's no indication it will become policy anytime soon. As for removing capital gains tax exemption on main homes, that would be an absolute political bombshell. Does Labour really want to risk the backlash from homeowners across the country, especially in marginal constituencies where elections are won and lost? History suggests they probably don't. Because here's the thing about mansion tax proposals. They've been around for over a decade and they almost never actually happen. Let's take a quick walk through recent history. In 2010, the Liberal Democrats proposed a 1% annual tax on homes worth over £2 million. Went nowhere. In 2012, George Osborne considered introducing extra council tax bans for expensive properties, but dropped the idea because the Conservatives had promised not to introduce a mansion tax. Between 2013 and 2015, Labour pushed hard for a mansion tax on properties over £2 million, even making it a manifesto pledge. They later shelved it. In 2015, the Lib Dems tried again with a banded tax ranging from £2,000 to £9,000 a year for homes over £2 million. That collapsed too. The pattern is crystal clear. Mansion tax ideas surface regularly in British politics, they generate headlines and anxiety, and then they quietly disappear under political pressure. Wealth taxes are politically radioactive in the UK, especially when they target people's homes. So while these current rumours are causing real stress and uncertainty, the historical odds of them actually becoming policy are surprisingly low. So what should you actually do if you're in the middle of buying, selling, or thinking about downsizing? The most important advice is simple. Don't let rumours and speculation drive your major life decisions. If you've found a property that fits your budget and meets your needs, don't pull out just because of political noise. We don't know if any of these proposals will happen. We don't know what form they might take if they do. And we certainly don't know what the rates or thresholds would be. Instead, focus on what you can actually control. Can you comfortably afford the property you're considering? Not just the mortgage payments, but the ongoing costs of ownership. Do you have wiggle room in your budget if things get more expensive down the line, whether through new taxes, rising interest rates, or unexpected repairs? If you're thinking about downsizing, ask yourself an honest question. Would you still be downsizing regardless of these headlines? Because here's the thing, if you change your plans every time there's political turmoil or a new policy proposal, you'll be changing your mind every couple of years. Look at the chaos we've had in UK politics recently. You can't live your life based on what might happen in Westminster. If the answer is yes, you'd be downsizing anyway because it makes sense for your lifestyle and finances, then go ahead. If the answer is no, and you're only considering it because of tax fears, then it's probably best to hold off and wait for clarity. The UK housing market is incredibly sensitive to taxation changes. Every time stamp duty gets adjusted, we see spikes in activity followed by sudden stalls. We saw exactly this pattern last year with Labour's autumn budget and the stamp duty changes announced there. People rushed to complete transactions before the changes kicked in, then the market went quiet. That kind of volatility helps nobody, not buyers, not sellers, and certainly not the government trying to manage the economy. For now, the best approach is to stay calm and avoid panic buying or panic selling. What we're seeing right now is more politics than policy, more speculation than substance. Until something actually gets announced as official government policy, it's just noise. Expensive, anxiety-inducing noise, but noise nonetheless. So here's my question for you. Do you think shifting taxes from buyers to sellers would actually help first-time buyers get on the ladder? Or would it just stall the market by putting off downsizers and middle-market movers? And if you're currently trying to buy or sell, are these rumours affecting your decisions? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. This debate affects millions of people, and your perspective matters. Let's keep this conversation going.